Oh, fun.
Hey, good morning. It's Charlie King and Julie Smith here for our second installment of 4 that we're doing called Live from the Parenting Trenches. We did our talk last week, which was so much fun. And I'm super excited to have week 2. So this is Julie Smith, the woman who's sharing the screen with me is my friend Julie Smith, who is famously known for What to Do When. Is that the name of your website too? What to Do When?
Yeah, well, Julie Smith, it's Julie Smith because that means it's so creative, But yes, there's also What to Do When.
Oh, so there's both. You can either go to Julie Smith it's juliesmith.com.
Juliesmith.com. I am the Julie Smith that got juliesmith.com.
that you got that at all is just amazing. Or What to Do When. She famously speaks teen, which is pretty exciting. And we're doing this live from the parenting trenches. We got super excited this summer when we met about doing a multi-part series for parents of teens. And what Julie really brought to the table was her phrase, which I love and which I'd thought of, which is called "I Speak Teen." And so I'm super excited to be sharing the screen with her. And so if you while you're watching, we have an intention of being really right on, making the most of people's time. We're going to be on for about 20 minutes. And we're willing to stay on longer. And how you can help out is by asking us questions and sharing this feed. And we'll probably have some follow-up for you at the end. But I do want to jump right in. How are you this morning, Julie?
Yay! I know both you and I are coming off some travel, so we're shaking that off. And it feels like Monday, and it's already Wednesday. So beyond the parenting trenches, I think we're in life trenches today.
It kind of feels that way. And it's probably a great segue for us to have the topic of the day, which is it's 2-part. We have a 2-part. We're kind of complicated that way. And the title of today's talk is Invitation versus Obligation, Creating Partnership with Your Teen. And so, which I'm really excited about. It's definitely a hallmark of the way I parent. And for a lot of folks, it seems like that this is not the go-to, or it's not the intuitive way to parent.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I love that this is your go-to because it's mine as well. And I think in general, when we say let's partner with our kids in raising them, the first thought is, well, that's counterintuitive. We need to guide them, tell them what to do, like we're the ones in charge. And, I think you and I both, and you've spoken about this. In fact, I think you were just speaking this past weekend at a conference about, the roles that we play as parents in our children's lives.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think partnering with them and inviting them into the process of raising them into adults is incredibly important.
And I totally appreciate you saying that, right? Like I was at this conference. I was at Home Dad Con this weekend, which is a conference of the Stay-at-Home Dads Network, which is a national organization, and it's for stay-at-home dads. And I spoke at that. But here's the funny part: when I don't know how it was when you were growing up, but when I grew up, it was all top-down parenting, right? Like, there are going to be the rules. There's the things you should do. Here's when you avoid your father. This is when you avoid your mother when you're having that day. And you are instructed and expected to line up, follow up, and do what you're told. And that it leads to a lot of different places, not always what parents are intending. Like for me, in my experience with my family, it either led us to ducking out as much as we possibly can to avoid said obligations that we were told we had to do, or you constantly were lining up to try and meet unrealistic expectations, which somehow were never enough. So there's this place, right? To the same extent, and I love the word that you were using about guiding children, right? Like it is our responsibility to guide our children, but there's this gray, mushy area between, I'm the rule maker and therefore thou shalt follow my guide because I am your father, and and sort of just sort of allowing whatever the kid's feelings or opinions are in the moment to run that. And parents seem, in my experience, a lot of parents feel that they need to be either one or the other. Like, I'm either going to be all top-down parenting, or I'm constantly going to be worried about, what they think of every parenting decision I have to make. And either one can leave you with some really with some gaps.
I would agree. And I think we had similar upbringings, and there was a third piece of that is when there's so much top-down authoritarian parenting, there can be a lot of rebellion. I was the rebellion. So somebody says, Julie, you're going to do this. I was, yeah, let me show you what I'm really going to do. And you say this color's blue, I'm saying it's red, or, so kids are naturally going to push back because it's their job to push some. Yep. And they're, as they're evolving into their teen years, it's very different than when they were younger. When they were, 5, 3, 6, whatever it was, they needed us to say, do not cross a street. You don't go here. You don't do this. They needed more of those hard rules. As they get older, their job is to learn to make mistakes and problem solve and to figure this out. And so when we invite them into the mix, it gives them a chance to practice those skills about what's best for them.
Yeah, and I love that what you were saying is right. Like there's this transition period when they're younger, they need a lot more of that sort of top-down guidance. Whereas as they get older, we get to invite them into co-creating solutions together. And I think that's right. This is a good time for us to lay out the groundwork. And it's great that you and I are on the screen because, frankly, I actually was the kid who was constantly trying to line up with the top-down rules and expectations. And that, for the same extent you were pushing back, every time I tried to line up, it never seemed to fit the bill. Like, if you keep trying to line up, I'm going to get there. Somehow we're going to get all that appreciation or acceptance, or it's going to be enough for you. It actually never is. So finding this place where there is moving from that top down to that place of partnership is really the conversation we're having today. Mm-hmm. My experience, because I've been sort of swimming in this water for a long time, is really taking a look at what kind of result. It usually starts with me as a parent thinking about what kind of a result am I trying to produce, and like spending a minute or two thinking, what's the actual result that is most important to me? Is it actually something measurable, or is it something not measurable? Which are two different feelings, or two different ways of looking at places to approach your child. Mm-hmm. And for me, what I like to do is just to really just throw it out there and give you an example is just to really go out there and go, okay, so we have this commitment that you're going to, right now we're dealing with our daughter. She takes these, she's an athlete, and we're giving her a multivitamin to manage a magnesium deficit. And she is supposed to take it an hour before she goes to practice, and yet she hasn't been. It keeps ending up in her bag, and she isn't taking it, and she just gets distracted. And so top down doesn't seem to work. But when we sit down with her and say, look, our goal is to have you be healthy and be the kind of athlete that you say you want to be, and part of it, which you agree, is that you need to take these vitamins, but somehow we're not getting you to take the vitamins. Mm-hmm. So how do you see that we could get this into your regimen so it isn't something that's missed like it is currently?
I love that, because what you're doing there is inviting her to problem solve. So you're saying, here's what we need. We need you to be healthy. What works for you to get this in you? The same works, I can offer example as well. I felt like the bank of mom. So I have 3 teenagers. We're in the teen mix together. So I finally said, hey, here's my situation. You want money. What do you need to do to fix this? Because Bank of Mom is closed. 5 days later, my oldest had a job and he's thriving in there. I didn't have to say, get a job, tell him how to apply. I said, I'm going to let you figure this out. I'm here if you have questions. And I think this is a great opportunity for you to see what you're really made of. And that right there is such an important piece of inviting kids into the mix, of saying, I believe in you. Let's see what you can do. And I'm still here, but I trust you to grow up. And that's what this is. That's probably the number one benefit, is showing that we trust our kids. And to be part of this process of learning who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and sticking with it, right? And sticking with it, there's a sticking with it, because especially when you're starting out, this can be a difficult conversation. And you're going to find some things where it's, you know, one of the things is, one of the things I like to share is like, there's a couple of ways I could do this as a parent, right? Like, so I want you to just consider who I am as your dad right now is, you know, it's like, there are a couple of ways I could do this. I could either just tell you you have to, or get frustrated when you don't do that thing that is kind of important that we get done, or, you know, or I could sit down with you, we could figure out a solution together. I'd rather do the second than the first, because not only do I think it's more effective, but it's less uncomfortable for me. So how do you want to go ahead? Right? Like, sometimes I'll get some, like when I'm trying to partner, I'll get some real pushback. Like, well, I don't, you know, like, well, I don't wanna, like, I don't think I should have to, or whatever the thing is. And say, look, we have a couple of different ways this can go. And I'm kind of trying the one that I think is going to work best for you and I, but it doesn't have to. I could go a different direction.
Right.
And when I frame that up, because remember, our kids don't have anything outside their own experience. They don't have that 40, 50 years. Oh, good Lord. 50 years. They don't have that 50 years worth of life experience, of hard life experience. All they have is what's their limited life experience, and they're dying to have more say, but they don't have a lot of insight about how things can go. So it really helps them, and this is something I try and do pretty much everywhere, is to frame up the conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are a number of different ways this could go, or here's where I'm frustrated, and I'm hoping we can work together to figure this out.
Right.
And if it sounds like a business negotiation, it kind of is like that.
It is.
Like
yes. No, you're right. It's like a business negotiation.
And as parents, this is a skill. Like, I'll share with you, when our daughter went off to high school, she left a small Waldorf school, and there were 3 different high school options, including the public high school, the alternative high school, and a Waldorf school that she wanted to go to. And I said, you know, as your parents, we're actually going to decide what we think is best for you, which school is best for you. That being said, you get some say. And how you get some say is telling us which school you think you should go to. But it's not, and the more articulate you are about it, the more weight it's going to have in our decision.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just tell me I want to go to X and that's it, well, it's not going to get a lot of weight. But if you tell me you want to go to X, and you tell me, and here's why I see it's the best place for me, and then articulate that, it's more likely to get more weight with me. And as it turns out, our daughter was incredibly articulate. My wife and I, she walked out of the room, and I said, like, you know, that's really great. I appreciate you giving, you know, the time and attention to having this, and thanks so much. And she walked out of the room, and I looked at my wife and I go, well, I guess she's going there.
I love that, because I do a similar thing when there's something where I think, okay, I know kind of where I want this to go. And I've done the same thing. Like, I have ideas. I'd like to hear your ideas. And telling me a one-liner doesn't always get it across. Offering a little more depth. And they've come in with PowerPoint presentations. And so my mind is, that's enough. Like, and what it's done is help them identify their needs. And we talked about that last week, how important it is for kids to learn what they need, because, and you said something so important earlier. You said they have limited experience and limited insight. And I would agree with that. There's also limited opportunities right now for them to exercise their voice and to learn more about their own needs. And when we invite them into the mix, we're telling them it's opportunities. And it doesn't mean that every time that they say, this is what I want or this is what I need, they get a guaranteed yes. Because as you and I both know in our years of experience, just because you say this is what I think works best for me, people don't say, oh, of course, that's exactly what's going to happen. Sometimes you get a no, but they need to know that it's okay to get a yes or a no or a maybe as long as they've spoken their mind.
And here's the key. This is the key for me, is thinking my way through, how do I not back myself into a corner? Because the moment that you back yourself into a corner where you've said that thing or you've made that call, which makes it all black or white or all in, like this is now, I like to call this pulling out the big guns, right? Like pulling out the big guns is like it's the last line in the parenting negotiation book is, because I said so. And when you're in conversation about because I said so, you've vacated every other option. The moment you go there, partnership, negotiation, and even empathy has gone away. And so really this conversation is really about how to not back yourself into a corner when you have something. And especially if it's a loaded issue, if there's a really loaded issue, if this is about technology in your teen, if this is about behavior, if this is about, everything from sexual promiscuity to drugs to bedtimes to screens to whatever that thing is, especially if it's a loaded conversation, is to take a moment and back off and breathe. Because if it's super important to you, it's probably super important that you find a way to partner and find the solution, then go top down. Because if you go, especially as dads, we like to go like, just do it and it gets done. Like boot camp, you do it, then it gets done. And that very infrequently works. And if anything, if we're not careful, can build real resentment between our kids and ourselves.
I would agree. And I think when there are those loaded issues, sometimes the best way to go into that is, tell me your thoughts. I'd like to hear your thoughts first. Because as parents, we're also thinking ahead. And there might be an issue. Let's say your teen comes and says, my friend at school, I'm worried. I see a bunch of kids smoking pot. Sometimes in our heads as parents, we're like, oh, great. Now everybody's smoking pot at school. They're smoking pot. We don't know that. We're creating a story. And so if we step back, like you said, take a breath and we say, tell me a little more. Tell me your thoughts on this. What's really going on, so that we're not making these rash decisions and coming down, like you said, the top-down parenting, saying, well, you cannot hang out with any of those kids. You're doing this. We need to hear more about what's going on. And so, again, we're inviting them to be part of the process of parenting, but we're also inviting them into the conversation of not just growing up, but of life. Because these are topics that are going to affect them at school, at college, in the workplace. And so we're giving them a chance to talk about them, which is so incredibly important.
Yeah. And we're actually, don't tell anybody, we're actually training our kids to be their own advocates. We're training our kids to advocate for themselves, to start to distinguish what works and what doesn't, and a safe place to really screw it up. Right? Like you wouldn't want your young adult who, when they leaves home, go into a business negotiation and take a look at an offer and go, no, because I want more, or I think I should have more.
I don't want to do this.
I don't want to do that. I have to use a TPS cover sheet. I don't like that.
That is part of another part of their job in these years, and ours as well, is to give them the space to make mistakes so that they can make them in the safe way. They have a safety net with us, and we've got to give them that space to trip and fumble a little bit so that they aren't going out into adulthood and saying, well, everything was always so easy growing up. and I was always told what to do. They can't, when nobody's going to be there saying, get to work on time. They have to learn to do that. And that, again, there's many benefits, I think, to bring them into the mix. And we've talked about so many. I am curious about your thoughts. When I've heard many parents, when I bring up the idea of inviting kids into the conversation, or what about when your kids feel obligated to do things? I'm curious, and I'll share my thoughts on that in a moment, but I'm curious what you've seen when you start to bring up the idea of invitation versus obligation with parents you've spoke with about this.
For a lot of them, my experience is for a lot of them, it pushes back against their, especially for dads, it pushes back against what their perceived role of fatherhood is. Mm-hmm. Like the dad is to be respected or followed, and that will also depend on who is the more who's the more consistent and structured parent in the relationship. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's the father, sometimes it's the mother, and a lot of times too, it's from the bottom side up, which is you have to know what the result, part of what knowing what the result is, is making sure that you don't let go of what the result you actually want is, right? Like, because there's like, it's like, I just don't want to do this. And, there's door slamming and there's unkind things said. And yet, as parents, our job is to distinguish what kind of result we're trying to produce in a situation like this, and go, okay, so like, here's the deal. We don't work this out, that it's going to go be. So either parents are jamming down the top down, or they're rolling over and capitulating. Right. And they're letting their kids have their way. And that doesn't work either, because you're then building a muscle for your kids on things that are important to you that very specifically says, oh yeah, if I get upset enough, or if I do this behavior, mom and dad will just leave me alone and I'll get my way. And I frankly see that in so many places, and especially as kids get older. And if you have that, if that's the structure or the regimen that you've already created in your family, not only is it something that I would suggest you step in the way of right now, but if it's already the way it is in your house, it's going to take a little while to adjust it. But partnering is huge, and it teaches them a muscle that if they want to come to you, they say something like, hey, I really want to go out on Saturday night with my friends X, Y, and Z. We want to go see this movie. And they come and they bring you the pitch, right? It's the sales pitch. They bring you the pitch. Here's a pitch. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm thinking about. And, can I have the car? Here are the friends who are going to go with me. This is the movie we're going to go see. When we're done with that, we're going to go get some ice cream, which probably take half an hour, 45 minutes. And and can I have the car? Now, if you come to me with that, I'm much more likely to be all in than if you come to me and say, hey, can I have the car on Friday night? Right. That usually doesn't work.
Right. Well, and I want to add to that. One of the things that I've noticed is that when we bring up the idea of let's invite kids rather than say you're obligated for this, this, and this, once we invite them into the mix, what parents have mentioned to me is, well, where's my role in here? I'm supposed to be the parent. And you touched on that a little bit about, well, are they being disrespectful now? And, often I hear, but then what do I say? What's my role? They don't need me anymore. And that's what happens when kids are part of this process and teens are part of it. They need you differently. It doesn't mean less or more, it's differently. And it gives the space for the parent-child relationship to grow and evolve. Because when we use the same parenting techniques, that top-down that we used when we were little, we're shutting the relationship down at that age. And so we're saying, okay, I'm still going to treat you, or I'm going to parent you the way I did when you were younger. As they get older, they feel like there's this gap So they either feel like, oh, they only see me as a little kid, or I have to be an adult. And as parents,
Right.
this is our learning process too, of how can we grow with our children to support
Mm-hmm.
them and also support ourselves. And as much as we talk about kids identifying their needs, as parents, when we start to partner with our kids, it kind of invites us to identify our needs a little differently. And it circles back to what you were saying at the beginning. What is it I really need in this situation? What do I want my daughter to do with a vitamin? How can that happen? We have to do that same question with ourselves. What is it I really need in here, and how could I approach this differently?
Yes, absolutely. So that being said, for those of you who noticed that I was looking away from the screen, it was because I was posting up on our screen asking what questions you have. And in light of the fact that we don't have any questions, we're probably going to wrap up now. But remember, this is just the second of 4 events. The next ones are going to be hosted by my good friend Julie Smith over on her page. When I have that link, I'm going to make sure that, that I'll post it. Julie, are you going to do it on your private page, or are you going to do it on your public page?
That is a great question.
Well, let's just put it this way. When we have a link, when we know where Julie's going to do it, I'll share it with my folks, and you can go over to Julie Smith's page, and you'll be able to see it there. And for folks that that follow me, make sure that you keep on this space. If you want to comment below, we're going to make sure that the videos are available after we've done all 4. For those who weren't able to see it live or weren't able to find all 4, make sure that you ping me a private message, and I'll make sure that you get access to that after we're done with the 4. We're done with the 4 posts. So I'm going to wrap for the day. This has been Charlie King with Heroic Fatherhood,
and I'm Julie Smith with What to Do When.
And we will see you in this, well, not this space, but in a Facebook space near you next Wednesday at 9:30 Pacific, 10:30 Mountain. Wait, hold on, 11:30 Central, 12:30 East.
Wow, good job.
I did it. Who knew? And I hope you guys have a great day and parent on. Stand by.